what is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the 9th album by new metal band Korn. Basically this product is called Korn 3, Remember Who You Are, and it came out in the summer of 2010. So this is a pretty dope album here. Just as I say in particular, this has some vicious outings as far as those particular pitches going to happen. This is a lot more of like a just ferocious type project in terms of like the manicness. This is one that really feels like a head case of a project, just a little bit more off the deep end than usual. I feel like he definitely had some of that. Like I feel like the initial Korn album from 1994 was definitely a ghastly type one, and then Life is Peachy from 1996 was just kind of a manic type one, more in a metal sense. That's some of their most commercial. I definitely feel like Issues was just like I feel like Follow the Leader and Issues were just kind of like some new metal type ones, just more in a sense of like kind of creeping, but also kind of commercial, trying to commercialize that. And it's the same thing that happened with the Untouchables. And I kind of feel like this is kind of an album that this does not have, like, I really favor like the projects by Korn that have some of that more autumn type ghastliness of albums like Issues, a little bit of Follow the Leader, and then Serenity is Suffering. But this particular album is more along the lines of Take a Look in the Mirror, and I would probably say like a little bit of Life is Peachy in there as far as those pitches kind of happen. Now I don't remember Korn's 2005 and 2007 albums as much. It's been years since I've reviewed those particular type ones, but I would have to say it is, I mean, in terms of the crazy factor, this is definitely one of the most manic ones. I would also say, like, I think that there were some similarities between this project and the Nothing from 2019, despite the fact that that came out 9 years later. I just would look after the pitch behind that particular one, because I definitely feel like the Nothing was pretty crazy, but this one probably takes the cake as one of like the most manic and overall this kind of like head case type factor, like the most dismantled and kind of twitchy type format. I just look after it. I would definitely say if there would be a movie of like John Davis as far as those pitches gonna happen, I definitely think he could probably play like a pretty ghastly movie villain, something like Michael Myers or Freddy or Freddy Krueger or Jason Voorhees, one of those type ones. I just think within the manicness, if they were to ever make like a kind of play on like a Korn movie, something like that, it's just the concept of some of this type fare just really gets to that sort of ornateness. It's a very ornate album, just like appreciate the concept. It's going to get like a classic and rave score, just what I'd say. It takes back to vintage Korn. And for the most part, I've thoroughly enjoyed most of these Korn albums. I only have a couple more left. Just Path to Totality, which supposedly kind of doesn't have that good a reception. And then like their most recent album, Requiem, I'd have to say. But yeah, this is another stock highlight here. This is up there with, I would probably say this might be one of my favorite Korn albums. Maybe not like top 3, but maybe like top 6, top 7. I'd have to say there's plenty of those that are actually some of those favorites. I definitely would say that like Korn from 94, Issues is definitely one of those. I'd probably say that the Nothing might be one of those just within a recent highlight, just to be able to say that the viciousness of that particular one. From what I remember, I do remember giving See You on the Other Side like a 10 out of 10. I'm going to have to purchase that one, but that one was one I favored like 8, 9 years ago as far as those pitches kind of happen. So there's just plenty of those type ones. Take a Look in the Mirror is definitely a pretty gnarled type one. That's some great hangout type music, and this has more local summer type fare when Korn is normally seen in like the autumn. So there's just plenty of these type pitches. But yeah, for the most part, Korn's catalog is pretty damn well untouchable, I'd have to say, just within the pitch behind it. This is just randomly, I do feel like the concept behind this album's quality is just kind of a random kind of inspiration, just because new metal was kind of here and there in like the early 2010s as far as those pitches kind of happened. So it just kind of came out of nowhere. Not really as full-blown sure as to how well these songs charted. I'm going to look that up. Yeah, just relatively modest, just 2 brief singles, and both these, one of which hit number 10 on the U.S. main rock charts, the other one hit 23, so it just kind of went through the motions. Just kind of surprising. I mean, I realized that Korn had just had stock hit after album. This one's not seen as much of a noteworthy type one in terms of like standard maybe critic reception pitches like that, but this I would definitely say is the craze factor and just the overall delivery of what John Davis did with like the vocals and just what the band did in terms of like and having the aesthetic to coat these vocals is just pretty vicious, I'd have to say. So we'll look after it. This would have to say, yeah, there were only 2 singles out this project, relatively brief promotion, kind of similar to like what Marilyn Manson and Rob Zombie do by the time they get to like their 8th and 9th albums, some of those type pitches, just kind of concept, you just get 2 brief singles. But Oildale, not really how to say that, I don't know if that's like some different language, something like that, Oadale or something, I don't know what it particularly is, but Oildale, Leave Me Alone, basically is a nice one. This is like a haunting and ominous kind of stroll around music. I'd have to say some stroll music brush to kind of get here, just typical Korn and like a more militant and kooky type fare to kind of get. I want to say kooky, it's not so much like childishly kooky, but just kind of within the concept. This is one that kind of has that commercial aesthetic about it, but this is kind of the concept that has that typical kind of head case type factor about it. Standard head trip type fare just to be able to get. This is one that has a little bit more drive towards it. I mean, for the most part, it kind of seems like Korn songs in some senses are a little bit more teetering kind of here and there, but this one just has a little bit more drive about it, just determination, I'd have to say, within that particular type fare. Just within that particular type fare, more militant minded just within the pitch behind it, but it is basically like some stroll around, just get snack runs, pitches like that, pick up like checks mix, some of that type of stuff, get like some bugles, some of those type of things, just within the tone of some of that type fare, just within more cool weather, crisp out kind of brush it, I'd say. But it is a nice one. I do like the concept of hearing this song on the radio, despite the fact that nowadays it's probably just 90s and early 2000s Korn that you hear. But nice quality single, very underappreciated, I'd have to say. Really only has like 8 million plays on Spotify, so that's kind of relatively mild, I'd have to say, in some senses. But Let the Guilt Go is the second single, and this is probably the one I like better out of the two singles. I do like the radio and relative blue collar snap of Leave Me Alone, but I'd say Let the Guilt Go is a little bit more just house party and more recreational type ones, like a gnarled kind of hangout commotion. I would feel like here, just a fashionable kind of local send off. I'd feel like about this particular one, just some vintage kind of backyard smoke sesh to kind of get from Korn. So obviously they have a ton of these types of songs just for backyard type fare, just get turned up, like albums like Issues, Follow the Leader, some of these type ones. The Untouchables, Take a Look in the Mirror is just standard fare to kind of get some of that. I noticed that this album doesn't have as many, like this is not as much of like a full bounce social. This is just a real teetering type one that's really paying attention more to like the personal type appeals of this. It just has a little bit more focus on like just the delivery and just the overall aesthetic of like the hauntingness of like the personality factor. But I do think some of these social type, there are some hangout songs on here. A lot of this does work in autumn in a sense, not quite as creepy as like Issues and Serenity of Suffering, like I was saying, but it definitely has like that head trip type appeal. This something for like it's kind of your loud pack for spooky season, just within a blue collar type sense, just within the tone behind it. But there are some hangout type songs, not as many nightclub songs like compared to, I don't remember the Korn albums I want to say that were more nightclub oriented. I want to say maybe, I feel like Take a Look in the Mirror, albums like Take a Look in the Mirror and the Nothing, a little bit more hangout type fare with more turn up for your buddies, but there are some ones on here for some of that type fare, and Let the Guilt Go is definitely one of those. Definitely needed a third single. Don't know why there wasn't one. That's what I had to say. But yeah, so I'm reviewing the 14 song edition on this particular product. I'm only going to review 13 songs. I could review Blind Live, but that's just like a live song of their first single from Korn 1994, so I'm not going to count that one. But basically, out of 13 songs in this particular album, I wound up recommending 12. Yeah, I wound up recommending 12 out of 13, including the deluxe. But basically, every song I wound up recommending on the standard edition, just to say that every song on there. So obviously, this album gets a 10 out of 10. So basically, the only song I don't recommend in any fashion is just the 7-minute song People Pleaser. The thing about it is it's not really a 7-minute song, but it just kind of had a dismantlement of like the delivery as to how that song kind of went. I just kind of feel like the band work on that particular song did not deliver as well and was not as catchy as what it probably needed to be as far as that particular pitch kind of goes. I mean, I at least feel like for the most part getting the deluxe edition just because the song Trapped Underneath the Stairs is a good, nice one to get, but People Pleaser just didn't nail it as well as far as like, it's just a little bit flatter. A song just was kind of a little bit half-baked, I'd have to say, if I look after it. I mean, all of these songs are pretty ghastly and shrill, I'd have to say, but it's just kind of the concept of this one. This is kind of one that lags compared to the rest of the album. But yeah, every other song on here is a go. I just would say 10 out of 10, and like the standard edition, obviously, with recommending all the songs, and the only song on the deluxe I don't recommend is just People Pleaser. But basically, talk about these Uber Times, a real nice one. This is just an intro, but I do like the fare behind this. It's like a creeping kind of quality news is on during like some ghastly, it's like some creeping quality news is on during like some ghastly teetering. I would definitely feel like here a good point of view for Korn. Good point of view for Korn for like their usual manicness I'd have to say about this particular fare. So it's just kind of the concept of this, a good haunting backdrop of like a production on like just the television being on as far as those pitches kind of go. I do like the concept of just getting some of that. Would have been nice to have heard what John Davis could have said some of that if he would have been like fuck this, or just something that you'd have just been like, what the hell is going on, what are they talking about, just with something extra on there. But it works for what it is. We all hear some of that just grimness just within the factor, just real kind of schizo as far as those pitches kind of go. Good stuff. Pop a Pill is a real nice one, and like I was saying about this particular album, it's just very schizo, just kind of all over the place. Just really feels strung out in some sense. It's just a little bit more of like a cagey type project, more so than usual, which I do like the tone. Compared to Take a Look in the Mirror or The Untouchable, some of those type ones, this one just feels a little bit kind of like trembly and just a little bit kind of like, just a little bit trembly and a little bit dismantled just within the tone behind it, I'd say. But Pop a Pill is like a heavy hitting kind of snarl. I feel like about this one, similar to Look in the Mirror days. Take a look in the mirror from 2003. Some good evening turn up and like some manic fun after work shift, I'd say in particular. So I do like the tone behind this. Some of this just works in particular for getting some of that. This would definitely be a hangout song, just like Let the Guilt Go. And I'd probably say another one that's kind of like that is Holding All of These Lies. It's a stock type one to kind of get. There's some other ones on here. Move On is a nice one as well. Basically, the first, say about the first 4, 5, 6 songs that you hear apart from Uber Time are some nice ones for like that. I feel like the first 4, 5, or 6 songs that you hear apart from Uber Time are like some nice hangout type fare to kind of get vintage of like the Take a Look in the Mirror days. There's some manicness to kind of be able to have. I mean, these are a little bit more craze factor, just a little bit teetering just within the pitch, but they do deliver upon that just snarling riffage. Songs like Pop a Pill, songs like Move On, songs like Let the Guilt Go, and even Lead the Parade in some senses are just, they take similar riff type fare to like Take a Look in the Mirror from 2003 with a little bit of Untouchables just in there within that sense. It's kind of more, in terms of the band work, it's just more metal and less haunting, I'd have to say, but it just has like a certain kind of jarringness this time that just works pretty well. It's just within the pitch. But so basically, another one to talk about that is I would say Move On is a quality one. So it's like a murky kind of gothic turn up, I would feel like here, just a twitching kind of vintage manic buggedness, I'd have to say about this one, just some creeping kind of ground level outs. This one's just kind of more house party type fare, just within a sense. It's more standard type fare, just more residential homies type music, just within the pitch. But I like the twitchiness of some of these type ones. Move On kind of reminds me of Got the Life from 1998, as far as like the verse switch up and like the second verse is kind of, it gets a little bit leery in the second verse as far as that particular kind of goes. It's the same kind of gothicness. But yeah, it's just the concept, like what I've been saying. The riffs, just in particular, really have some of that standard manic type fare. Like a lot of these do have relatively similar. Is just kind of the pitch that is just more on the emphasis of John Davis and just the execution of how he really makes these like very freakishly kind of ghastly just within the tone. I would say scary within a sense, but just for like the fare, just being able to say that this is really, he really makes it with like the scare factor, just having the concept of just being really dismantled. So I just like the tone beyond. I'll get some of these. But so I'd say, so the Past is a nice one. It's like a ghostly kind of hot air. Past is like a ghostly kind of hot air track, I would have to say. Just some extra thoughts and rumination during like snack runs and errands as far as those pitches kind of happen. Just a stock kind of Leary Korn gem to kind of get here. So there's 2 songs on here, both The Past and Never Around kind of have more typical type fare, just like ghostliness, just with a little bit lengthier type songs. Not quite as much turn up and more hangout type factor, but just kind of in between blue collar type moments just to get some errands done, maybe like a local stroll, pick up some stamps, some of that typeness, get some envelopes, some of those type fares that just bill paying or just standard outs, just in like the creepy autumn air. I feel like some of this can, when I say ghostly hot air, just within the pitch of whether or not September is kind of hot when it's kind of autumn, but it's still kind of somewhat warm just within the pitch. Some September, October type music, just, recent Octobers compared to 2010 are a little bit more hot and just pitches like that. But just within the tone, both The Past and Never Around kind of have those particular tones. But yeah, Never Around is a real nice one. This is probably one of my more favored lengthier Korn songs, I'd have to say. When you think of like a song that's more past like the radio single snap of being like 3.5 or 4.5 minutes, this is kind of like one, like not so much like a power ballad, but definitely like a haunting kind of just lengthier song to kind of get. This like a hazing kind of creepy and pseudo post grunge like rumination kind of get on this song. It's kind of some in between kind of day traffic haunts. It's kind of some in between kind of day traffic here to kind of have just a blue collar type one, a relative worship type one, just to kind of have for like that standard ghastliness. Just kind of Korn just within like that standard commute, I'd have to say. And this song haunts pretty well. There's like a point on this particular song Never Around where John Davis starts laughing towards the end of the song, and it really sounds freakish. I really like the tone. I have not seen him do that too many times around that particular pitch. He just really has like this particular freakish kind of schizo kind of appeal about that particular one. Just really feels like something the Joker would do from Batman, one of those type pitches. It's really excellent. I like the tone behind it. Trapped Underneath the Stairs, the bonus song on the deluxe, is like another nice one. This reminds me definitely of like 1994 or 1996 Korn from like their early days. I'd say it's like a screeching kind of tormented riffs. I think it takes it back. I want to I want to say that Trapped Underneath the Stairs takes it back to like the Blind Days from 1994 and some of those singles off their 94 album. I don't remember them as full blown. Once again, it's been a while. I need to throw probably like 1994 Korn on my new MP3 players for those pitches going to happen, but it's definitely some excellent stuff. It's from that particular fair, just really early days, just as a throwback to some of this is like a throwback because it had been 16 years from this particular album to like 1994 Korn, so it's a good pitch for that. Lead the Parade is a quality one. It's like a dismantled kind of late day slog, I'd feel like here. It's like some summer evening heat and like a caging kind of Aggie. It's definitely some summer evening heat to kind of get here. Just a little bit of like caging kind of Aggie outs to kind of get. And by Aggie, I mean aggravated. It's just kind of a slang term for that if you don't know. But it's just kind of some wired fun to be able to get. The Lead the Parade is definitely one that goes along with Pop a Pill. It's interesting to kind of have Korn be on some of these type of songs where there's going to be like super hot weather and just where it's kind of aggravated because you just get like heat at just where you're angry because it's hot out. It's like hangry. Like when you think of hangry, when you get angry when you're hungry, it's kind of like the concept of it's kind of the concept of being angry when it's hot out. I forget that phrase as to what that's called, but it's just kind of within the pitch. I feel like there's definitely like some heat angriness that Korn has in this particular album. Just like that slag of like summer heat and just the pitch of just being dismantled on top of that. Someone like John Davis in 105-degree weather is probably an interesting sight just because the concept of him just being manic and kind of sketch and pitches like that, I'd say. But songs like Pop a Pill and songs like Lead the Parade, some of those type ones have that particular type fare. It's a good pitch for some of that type fare, I'd have to say. Probably another one like that is Fear is a Place to Live. This is like a Back on the Autumn Prowl kind of say another one like that, but it's also some good autumn type music and Take a Look in the Mirror days. It's Fear is a Place to Live. This is like a Back on the Autumn Prowl kind of standard fun I'd have to say about this one. Just some backyard smokage, and this has some shredding riffs. So yeah, just like Let the Guilt Go, Move On, and like Pop a Pill, some of those type of ones I just would have to say it's just within the pitch of being able to have some like good homies hangout type fare just for like some good roundabout type backyard smoke sessions, pitches like that, just kind of standard fun to kind of be able to have. Are You Ready to Live is a pretty excellent one, as well as like a brooding and kind of paced creeping. I would feel like Are You Ready to Live is a pretty excellent one, as well as like a brooding kind of paced creeping. I'd feel like about this one, just an extra ghastly kind of sludge kind of get here, and it's like a good head case gem for like some cool out weather to kind of have within that in particular. So it's just within the pitch. This one, John Davis, a little bit extra manic on this particular song. Definitely some ones on here just like Pop a Pill and Lead the Parade, some of those type of ones. Trapped Underneath the Stairs, some of these type of ones in particular. Songs like some of those, and Never Around, some of those type pitches just to be able to get just within the tone. Just the manicness definitely turned out pretty shrill. Manicness definitely turned out pretty shrilly, I'd say, on this particular album. So that's the pitch behind this particular album as far as that kind of goes. I think I talked about every song on here as far as that happens with it. So yeah, this album basically gets a 10 out of 10. Me talking about the only song I didn't recommend on here just being People Pleaser. But yeah, every other one on here. Actually, I don't think I talked about Holding All These Lies. There's one more song I didn't talk about on here. So Holding All These Lies, like a stock kind of early 2000s Korn hangout turn up. Holding All These Lies, like a stock kind of early 2000s Korn hangout turn up to kind of get just like in the Mirror days from 2003, some of those type ones. Vanilla Social Times, I definitely feel like about this particular one, it's pretty eerie bop to kind of get here. So it's just within that standard fare. It just feels just like the singles off Take a Look in the Mirror. Just feels like some of that type fare. A little bit of like the Untouchables, some of those type ones. Just early 2000s Korn, just within the pitch behind a standard type fare. Just kind of commercial aspects of getting some new metal, just within like that gnarled kind of, I mean, the riffage on some of these, if you don't know, Take a Look in the Mirror, the Untouchables, it just really has like snarled type riffage that just feels like great for like backyard type weather, just like July, late August pitches like that, some of that type fare, just backyard type fun. Have some swishers in the air, have some hamburgers for like cookout, some of that type fare, just being able to get hamburgers, hot dogs, some of that typeness, just be able to have some backyard type fun, just within the pitch, good stuff. So I have to say, but yeah, like I was saying about this song, it's a 10 out of 10. The Soldier Scar I'm going to go ahead and give. That's kind of tricky. I look after it. I probably would give like the Soldier Scar maybe like a 9.75 out of 10. I would give it like a 10 out of 10, but I just look within the pitch of behind being able to say I look after. There's two singles on here, and these singles just kind of came and went. It felt like Korn was just briefly around in like the spring and summer of 2010, and then kind of dissipated as far as that pitch kind of went. I mean, I definitely feel like John Davis's character is on display here, but there are some hangout type songs within a pitch. But I look after it when I think of a song like Adidas, or when I think of a song like some of the songs off of Life is Peachy, or songs like Got the Life, or like Freak on a Leash, some of those type of ones, or falling away from me, some of those type ones. It just doesn't have like a more massive, ubiquitous type song. And then on top of that, like most of this is just more shredding kind of. I mean, I do like some of the manicness, but a lot of this just feels like more solo for Dolo type fare. I mean, there's some homies type music on here, but it's just not. I feel like the distinction is just not as heavy as far as those pitches kind of happen. I just look after it. I feel like it definitely has the quality of some of these type songs on here, but it's just not as like full blown on display as I would have to say is normal. I mean, it's here, but I feel like the social bite this time is just not as dazzling as it is on like earlier Korn and just pitches like that. Now realizing that a 9.75 is really not that much of like a slight to be able to say. I mean, the excellence is on this particular project, but just when you think of like social kinetic type songs like Adidas or like some of the singles like Blind or Shoots and Ladder, some of those type of ones, and like Freak on a Leash, some of those type of ones falling away from me. Some of those type highlights is just as within the pitch that it might be a little bit more of an acquired taste within a relatively mild type sense. Just within the sense that it's not the immediate factor, just instant kind of immediately. I'd say just within the tone. But that's kind of the thing. So in terms of the future, like Korn has dropped an album in 2022 called Requiem, and then they kind of put out like a live edition of that particular album in 2023. So they'll probably be back probably somewhere 2025, 2026, somewhere in there. Just have to say within the tone. But this is kind of an off the wall and kind of unexpected classic here. Kind of an unexpected classic here, just kind of inspired just within the pitch behind it. Just manic, extra manic John Davis on this particular project. His character is on full display on this particular project. A relatively brief project, but haunting. It's kind of dismantled, cagey pitches like that. It's really buggy and twitchy, and I'd say, and it just works extremely well. It's just kind of the tone that's a little bit more isolated, but it nails it.